Thank you, Chantal. If Chantal had asked me, when she asked me about a year ago to present at this conference, if it had been a year and a half ago, I would have been talking, I'm sure, about the mother archetype. And so because of situations that have happened in my life, and mostly my inner life, it became very clear when we spoke. It became very clear to me that I was going to be talking about the next phase. And so I am 58 years old. And I'm here to offer a new vision for all of us, emerging Crones. And this applies to all women, no matter what your age, because our inner Crone is always emerging. So, how many of you have a positive association to the word Crone? Great, okay. So how many of you have a negative association to the word Crone? Yeah, just about equal. That's what I thought. And so, if you have a negative association to this word, it may be really hard to see how we can gain value as we age, if I'm using that word. In fact, let's consider a definition that I found in Merriam-Webster online. I think it's one of the ways to understand our culture's basic understanding or misunderstanding of the Crone is to Google. That's one of the definitions of a Crone. A little alliteration here. The old Crone lived alone. Damn, she lived alone. She knew she needed psychic space. And then a storyline. A rundown house, this is still Merriam-Webster, that was inherited by a cantankerous crone who kept to herself. You bet she kept to herself. She was a profound introvert. And then we find that it comes from Middle English, a term of abuse. From Anglo-French, caroine, meaning dead flesh. Ouch. So, there's Marion Woodman. And she is my teacher. She is a self-declared Crone. Wikipedia says that Crones are marginalized by their exclusion from the reproductive cycle, which is another way of saying that that women are of no more use to patriarchy if they can't make babies. We are all women aging in an ageist society that tells us that our value, success, and beauty has a predetermined end date. And I think you all know that it is not when we die. Most of us are afraid of our aging, and some of us are even hiding our necks with scarves. Many of us are scared of our emerging aging spots. Gravity is working on our skin and our breasts. No wonder we sometimes feel like we're racing. Perhaps we think that if we don't emerge before we get old, we will become invisible. An old woman in a youth-centric society no longer desirable and therefore marginalized and irrelevant. Can't we women find a better way? Absolutely. And it's by discovering the richness of our inner life and by cultivating it that we come to know our value and the absolute need our culture has for our wisdom of experience. I think it's time that we redefine Crone. And if you don't like the word, find a word that you like. It might be elder, wise woman, inspired leader, witch, mentor, or fierce, sassy sex goddess. Whichever you prefer. The world is desperately in need of our wisdom of experience. When the elders of a generation do not gather and own the wisdom of their life experience and of the generations that have come before them, a vital transmission is lost, and we shortchange the generations that come after us. How can we do more of what we're doing here And how do we bring what we're doing here out into our lives and into our communities? We crave elders. It's a soul craving. Marion, can we see Marion Woodman again? My craving led me to her, a Jungian analyst, and as I said before, a self-declared crone. Her wisdom of experience wasn't given to me in the culture and family that I was born into. And I suspect this is true for many of you. Who are your elders? And have you found them? Far away from standard dictionaries' negative definitions, the crone is a wise woman, a much better alliteration than withering woman. Marion Woodman is the brilliant Jungian who Sarah Beek referred to 2 days ago. When she interviewed her, she was so moved that she cried through the interview. She felt as though she was in the presence of a woman who truly embodied soul. Well, she was in the presence of a crone. You see, being in the presence of a crone, such as Marion, can have such an impact on a woman, man, author, that Sarah has now delineated her life into before Marion and after Marion, BM and AM. Woodman insists that the word crone comes from the same root as crown. And she calls the third phase of our lives the crown of age, which, by the way, is an unbelievable CD series available by Sounds True. It's called The Crown of Age, where Marion Woodman speaks of this, which I highly recommend. Anyway, let's see here. So that would make our crondom regal. Ladies, as we age, we are emerging queens of wisdom. Marion Woodman also calls crondom the third act of life. Metaphorically speaking, cycles often work in threes, the 3 phases of the moon, waxing, full, and waning, or the 3 phases of the ancient goddess, maiden, mother, crone. The 3 biological markers of a woman's life, menarche, or her first period, regular menstruation, and her fertility, and menopause, divide our lives into a 3-act play, quite literally and metaphorically. Our biology mirrors and catalyzes our emotional and spiritual growth. Of all the human beings, male and female, who have ever lived on this planet's Earth, we women who are in the prime years of crondom, and I'm like just moving into it, my baby boomer generation, are the first who've had the opportunity of being both maternal and achievers in the world. It has been possible for us to make choices and learn consequences and integrate both the masculine and the feminine principles into our lives. Balance is a real issue for our generation. I'm a psychotherapist who uses a Jungian approach, so the titles Queen of Wisdom and Wise Woman can also be called archetypes. In Jungian psychology, archetypes refer to a collectively inherited unconscious idea, pattern of thought, or image, which is universally present in our individual psyches. Carl Jung suggested that these images are innate, universal, and hereditary, and that we can bring them into greater consciousness as we age. There are archetypal events that we all can recognize, such as birth, death, separation from parents, initiation, marriage, divorce, and there are the archetypal characters that we all know, such as mother, father, child, trickster, hero, heroine, wise old man, wise old woman. We can identify with one or many of these archetypes throughout our lives. See, Jung believed, as I do, that these archetypes actually live within us as facets of ourselves, to be recognized and brought to light and cultivated. I have a photograph of me when I'm 5 years old, and I'm wearing a nurse's uniform and holding a baby doll. I'm a nurse practitioner, a psychotherapist, and a mother. I'm a workshop leader of mother-daughter workshops, and a co-author with my daughter of the book Mothering and Daughtering. So you might say that I am very much identified with the mother archetype, and that it has been a positive energy and influence in my life, and both work and personal. This was a revelation to me that I could cultivate any capacity of any archetypal capacity in myself. So now I'm beginning to build on the Crone wisdom, on top of my mother wisdom. I'm also building on my inner girl archetype, sometimes called the maiden, who is youthful and loves to go out and have a good time. We get to keep all of these archetypal energies as we grow. They stay with us on the journey. To become the elders the world so urgently needs, and for some of us, Cronedom may be an identity so far away. So I'm asking the young women in the room to stay with me here, because we need to get comfortable with our inner crone. And yes, that wise old lady that lives within. We need to learn to consult her, strengthen our connection to her, and embody her in moments when we feel unsure or overcome by the ageist messages of our society. Let the Queen of Wisdom take up residence in your very bones. It is like we are doing what Kelly suggested yesterday, investing in our future selves. Here's the thing. We don't automatically become a crone. We can be the beautiful age of 85 and still be living only from our inner teenage girl's perspective, the maiden archetype, unable to ground in our own wisdom and value. Becoming a crone is a deep and sometimes, I would say usually, an arduous process, and a transition worthy of a crone's wisdom of lived experience. There are many paths to cronedom, but there is one that is the most common and the most direct. It is through suffering. Sorry. When Eve Ensler spoke of her dark night of the soul yesterday and facing her cancer and the possibility that she might die, not only did she emerge well and healed, but you might have noticed that she emerged yesterday saying, "I fear nothing." This is just one of the crone's many attributes. This nun recently broke into the inner sanctum of a nuclear power plant in Tennessee. Megan Rice is 82 years old, and she has more than 50 acts of civil disobedience. She's a crone, and she's wearing a crown of roses right there. And as my teacher, Marion Woodman, says, when a woman becomes a crone, it means that she has lived and suffered. And having suffered, she can draw back in a kind of detached, compassionate way and see with her heart. The mother archetype feels with her heart. The crone builds on that and both feels and sees with her heart. I might have, there. So I love this drawing by Da Vinci. It's a little blurry, but I'd love for you to that's Mother Mary on the left. She's sitting on her mother's lap, Saint Anne, the great mother. I call her the great archetypal mother crone. And that's Jesus sitting on Mary's, the laps are all confused, and it's meant to be that way. And then that's St. John the Baptist, Jesus' cousin. But I'm so drawn to this image that it's over my altar. And I am so drawn to the dark, deep eyes of St. Anne that you can hardly make them out, especially in this blurred vision, but she has that love, that presence that I think comes with the wisdom of age and having suffered. And so, there's a crone. Consider your suffering as a possible initiation, a transition that marks you as a crone, worthy of your crown, excuse me. The crone is able to transmute suffering into consciousness, like an alchemist who transmutes base metal into gold. The crone is an alchemist. My first initiation as a crone was an excruciating year of bullying when I was in 7th grade, a year of suffering without adult intervention. I remember crying every day after school in my bedroom. Besides being extremely traumatic, a trauma that I worked out in therapy as an adult, my adolescent suffering opened my heart to other people's pain. The compassion of the crone can begin to grow at any age, which is why I was wanting you young women to really listen here. I'm in my second initiation now. 4 months ago, my husband and I separated after a very painful process of looking at the state of our marriage and our relationship. And we decided that we needed time apart to grow. We've been together for 32 years, more than half of my 58 years. Right now, I don't know whether we will come together, you can hear the emotion in my crone's voice, to create a second marriage, or whether we will divorce. Separation and divorce, and we middle-aged women are divorcing in rising numbers, can be spiritual initiations if we do our inner work, withdraw our projections that we have placed on our partner and on the institution of marriage, and allow the pain and loss that we experience to transform our inner world. I can tell you that it is agonizing work and that it is worth it. And I'm living through one of my greatest fears. The possibility that my husband and I might not live happily ever after with each other. I have found strength and wisdom that I did not know that I had. And part of that strength is the realization that I can live happily ever after with myself. And that no matter what happens, my life can unfold in a very rich, meaningful way. Or wholly, W-H-O-L-E-Y, as my daughter spoke about 2 days ago. As a whole person, when life is lived from the experience of wholeness, having a partner is a blessing, yes, but not a necessity. And one more thing here, just as Eliza said, there is no perfect teenager, there is no perfect crone, and no perfect woman. and as Eliza said, because I'm speaking from the other side, young women need whole women and whole crones, in this case, to mentor them. There's a new kind of love and compassion that has taken up residence in my soul. Love and compassion for others, but most importantly for myself. I'm beginning to understand what Marion means when she speaks about seeing from the heart. Crones know that they are the only able to love another as much as they are able to love themselves. And they are ready to fiercely and passionately fall in love with their whole being. Nope. Can I have Gloria Steinem? Thank you. Divorce is just one possible initiation. And as I said, and into finding a deep love for self and others. And Gloria Steinem, as I said, a crone in her own right, has said, When are we going to call divorce a rite of passage instead of a failure? Initiations can also be catalyzed by a health crisis like Eve Ensler's, cancer, a financial crisis, the death of a loved one, or the monumental buildup of the natural passing of time and the burning new question, am I living my own life or someone else's life? The life that I should be living. This is like really, in a kind of conventional sense, what the midlife crisis at its best is about. Loss or the possibility of loss and suffering, though hardly glamorous in our quick fix culture, provides us an opportunity to learn who and what really, really matter and matters. In a dark night of the soul, if we keep our eyes open and our heart open, we meet her, our inner crone. Maybe she's been sitting in the rocking chair by the hearth of our inner fire all along, waiting for us to notice her, to curl up by her feet, or to take her out into the world with us. Our value does not depend on the culture's opinion of us. We are truly gaining value as we age, rich with life experience, grounded in wisdom that no up-and-coming 20-something, brilliant as they are, can attain at that age. It's time to turn the negative myth of the crone on its head. Crones are truth tellers. They speak no bullshit. They speak it like it is. And I think that is the heart of the reason why patriarchy has created such a negative archetype of the old woman. She practices a positive non-attachment. She no longer attaches her value to the judgments and temporary nature of the external world. We are lucky if we have met real crones in our lives. The crone is the perfect mirror because she has no agenda. But as the perfect mirror of our true self, she can be really scary. She accepts all of us, but she will speak the truth to us. With her as a guide and a companion, we can travel safely into our darkness. Imagine yourself being that kind of friend or companion or mentor to a younger man or woman. What a gift that would be. Whoops. So Maya Angelou said this, I've learned that people, also a crone, will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I love that because it really speaks to the feeling function of the crone. She's got logic down, but she really, really thinks from her heart. And being a crone is more about that feeling function. And that's why exceptional men can be called honorary crones and feel deeply and see clearly from their hearts. This is John O'Donohoe, who left us 5 years ago, a beautiful, visionary Irish poet. And I'm going to end with a blessing written by him. May the light of your soul mind you. May all your worry and anxiousness about your age be transfigured. May you be given wisdom for the eyes of your soul to see this as a time of gracious harvesting. May you have the passion to heal what has hurt you and allow it to come closer and become one with you. May you be blessed, and may you find a wonderful love in yourself, of yourself. So when it's your time, ladies, boldly step into your third act of life and know that it is bound to be your best act. If you cultivate your inner life, consider it a time of gracious harvesting. We are all women aging in an ageist society that tells us that our value, success, and beauty has a predetermined end date. But we have to counter this prejudice and speak bravely from our hearts. The world is desperately in need of our wisdom of experience. Transform your loss. Last slide. Your suffering and your worrying into consciousness. Ground in your body and wisdom, and take the crown that is your rightful inheritance.